And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome, everyone, to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service in Alaska region on this Monday, November 17th, 2025. And starting out with the Alaska weather-related headlines, we're watching a little compact area of low pressure working its way up along the west coast that will create adverse winter weather conditions. There are winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories in effect. I'll highlight those places in a moment. We're going to have two different North Pacific low pressure systems. One is going to come up into the eastern Gulf, and another one is going to be pulling up into Bristol Bay by Thursday. And these two midweek systems will bring a variety of weather across from the southern mainland all the way along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle. And we could see a rather deep and broad windy low pressure system over Bristol Bay come Thursday afternoon. That's going to have a circulation that impacts a large portion of the state. And if that's not enough, there's a possibility of yet another deep, broad North Pacific low coming up across the Aleutians around Thanksgiving Day. So the weather pattern is going to stay rather active here as we head up here through the end of November. Looking at NOAA on this Monday afternoon, some light snow and fog, 18 degrees. There is a winter storm warning in effect for the NOAA area, much of the Seward Peninsula. That is in effect until early Thursday morning. NOAA itself could pick up 8 to 12 inches of snow with blowing and drifting snow. Chivak and the lower Yukon coast in a winter weather advisory, and that winter weather advisory extends all the way along the lower Yukon coast, Norton Sound, and then up along through Kotzebue and up toward Kivalina. These areas are going to pick up 2 to 5 inches of snow with some blowing, drifting snow. Winds could gust as high as 40 to near 50 miles an hour. But Chivak is seeing clouds increasing and breezy conditions, southeast winds picking up this Monday afternoon with a temperature at 34. Skagway is seeing light rain, 39, but as you go up Klondike Highway toward Chilkoot and White Passes, those areas are going to be picking up snow yet into this evening, but that should begin to wind down as we get in the overnight and certainly for tomorrow. Now, Heidelberg in the southern end of the Panhandle, overcast skies. There are some areas of light showers, 39, but winds are going to be increasing across the southern Panhandle Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, where a high wind watch has been issued. And then this was from last Tuesday. The thing about the aurora, hopefully you saw it last week. There were a couple of nights where it was really good. The thing is that the sunspot group that was pointed toward Earth now is rotated around now to the backside of the sun so that we cannot see that, or will it have any influence on our space weather for the time being. We're going to have to wait for a couple of weeks for that to rotate back around and be more Earth directed. In the meantime, though, we have the high wind watch for Tuesday evening into Wednesday evening for the southern Panhandle. Winds could gust as high as 60 miles an hour with a front that'll be moving into that area Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. But out here in the west, we have a low pressure system north of Nunavik Island that's going to be tracking here just off of the lower Yukon coast up toward the Seward Peninsula. And this low is going to have increasing winds along with accumulating snow, and these stronger gusty winds could create blowing snow, even some localized blizzard conditions along areas of the west coast, including the lower Yukon Delta around Norton Sound, the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, and up through Noatak. So these areas will be seeing conditions deteriorate, especially later tonight and on Wednesday, with lingering effects into Thursday morning. Looking at the satellite imagery, we have at least an initial push of a front and moisture coming into the Panhandle today, but that's going to be diminishing. And then back here to the west, here's the low. It's just north of Nunavik Island, off of Chivak and Hooper Bay, and that's going to be lifting slowly northward. And this feature bringing some snow, blowing snow there to St. Lawrence Island as well, where there is a winter storm warning in effect. And as we look at the weather map later tonight, there's that low. It's going to begin to gradually weaken as it drifts northward, but it has enough impacts and weather around it that these winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings will be in effect until early Thursday morning. And then out here in the western Gulf, a weakening low off the Kenai coast. Things will settle down out that way, and then we have another low in front working its way into the western Aleutians. By Tuesday, we find the low up there along the west coast just slowly drifting northward to just near and offshore there of Nome. Meanwhile, along the Gulf Coast, just a weak front trough that's left. Here comes the next low. This front, as it comes northward, is going to increase winds along the outer panhandle, especially here, Prince of Wales Island, the southern panhandle. You're going to note that later Tuesday night and especially Wednesday morning. Out here to the west, we have more energy crossing the lower Bering and the Aleutians, so that on Wednesday, here's the low coming out of the North Pacific toward the Gulf with this occluded front wrapped around it. That's what's going to give the strong winds to the southern panhandle later Tuesday night and especially Wednesday morning and early Wednesday afternoon. Some wind gust out of the southeast there, 60 miles an hour, Prince of Wales Island and around higher terrain there at Metlakatla and Ketchikan. Meanwhile, to the west, the one low that brought the snow and blowing snow to the Seward Peninsula will lift further north up into the Chukchi Sea. And then we have this next low that's going to deepen. It's linking up with energy coming from the North Pacific and the one I showed you sliding across the Aleutians and lower Bering. This low will become the main low that's just southeast of Unalaska and Cold Bay Falls Pass. By Thursday, that low is going to track up into Bristol Bay and deepen further. Could deepen below 950 millibars. But of note, look at the broad circulation. This becomes one main system because it's phasing up in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. So it'll have a strong front pushing up against the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle with windy conditions there, along with coastal rains and then intermountain snows as that moisture comes inland along the coastal mountains in the Copper River Basin, Chugach. And then out here along the west coast, colder air coming down on the backside of the low. So we'll have snow showers or areas of snow along this trough, along especially the southwest coast. So it's going to be an active pattern here as we close out the week. And then for Tuesday morning, we find coldest temperatures, North Slope, Arctic coast, lows 10, 15 below up there. Single digits above or below zero south of the Brooks Range. And then we find some temperatures, though, near freezing along, say, Kuskokwim, Bristol Bays Tuesday morning because of that more of a southerly flow coming in off the southeast Bering Sea. Temperatures generally stay above freezing in the Panhandle. Get above Skagway and Haines, it'll be at or below freezing. And then for Tuesday afternoon, we find high temperatures, warmest here in the outer Panhandle, maybe 50 degrees around Heidelberg and Craig. As we look to the north, temperature only around 1 above at Yukon Flats and single digits along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And then extending down here along the Alaska Peninsula, temperatures in the lower mid-40s. For Wednesday morning, we find temperatures have moderated a bit along the Arctic coast, getting back up near or just above zero. Around 5, 10 below Arctic Village to the Yukon Flats. And then as we drop further south, lows generally in the teens and 20s for the southern interior. And then along the coast, Seward and Homer having lows near or just below freezing. And then out here across the Panhandle, still low temperatures. Warmest along the outer coast. You're going to have wind here, southern Panhandle, especially Wednesday morning. Some gusts to 60 miles an hour here in the southern Panhandle with temperatures holding above 40. And then out looking further west, cooling down to about 19 there for Savunga, and down along the Aleutians, lower 40s, and then high temperatures Wednesday afternoon. That low continues to drift northward into the Chukchi Sea, but we can still have adverse winter there during the day. Wednesday across the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, Norton Sound, lower Yukon coast with readings, some areas getting a little bit above freezing. This is not going to be an especially dry snow, but nevertheless, there's just a little push of milder air, and then we see that reflection of that southerly flow ahead of the system. Readings in the 40s along the Alaska Peninsula could manage 41, 42 at Kodiak City toward Middleton Island. And again, another 50-degree reading possible on Prince of Wales Island for Wednesday afternoon. And here is the temperature outlook just prior to Thanksgiving, November 23rd through the 27th. Temperatures will generally average above normal across the northern and western mainland, especially along the Chukchi Sea coast, down along the Bering Strait and the Bering coastline, and into the lower Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians, a likelihood of above normal temperatures simply because of the fronts coming in, bringing in at times the southerly, southwesterly flow into those areas. Meanwhile, below normal temperatures will set up over the panhandle as a result of colder temperatures further east and just the way the ridging is going to work out. So you'll have colder temperatures in the southeast, drier conditions anticipated leading up to Thanksgiving there, the 23rd through the 27th. But you got to get by the system coming up here this week. We have the midweek period rather stormy, so it's going to be wet along the Gulf Coast and Panhandle. But after that, once we get around and past the 23rd, it should be drier here and along the Alcan border, but still the potential for some above normal precipitation. The lower Yukon and Kuskokwim basins along the Kuskokwim Bay, Bristol Bay, and into the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians.